Guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tiffany. Now, today's subject, I will be touching on suffering, but I promise it's not all doom and gloom, but actually an uplifting and useful topic of how to stop causing ourselves unnecessary suffering. And before I go ahead, it's worth making a distinction between pain and unnecessary suffering. Pain is part of life. It's a process we all go through. It could be in the form of losing a loved one. It could be heartbreak. It could be most recently in the context of even COVID-19 and its devastating effects on so many lives and people's mental health, loneliness, isolation, sort of restrictions on your freedom, losing your jobs, not able to feed your family, economic uncertainty, and now having to recover. That is natural. That was outside of our control. There was nothing we could really do. We just had to sort of protect ourselves against what was coming. That's different from unnecessary suffering. Unnecessary suffering is self-imposed. It's a sort of suffering we impose on ourselves simply based on the choices we're making, based on our mentality, based on not adhering to some natural laws. Buddha said pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And I think that really highlights the point I want to make today. Now, a story that really reflects well on how we cause ourselves unnecessary suffering is this. There's a monkey that's terrorizing the village, as monkeys do. And the villagers seek the advice of a wise man. How do we get rid of this truant monkey? How do we trap this monkey? And he suggested that they get a coconut, empty out the contents, cut out the top of the coconut and then put in some treats and then shackle the coconut to a tree. So when the monkey comes, the truant monkey, puts his hands in the coconut, it will become trapped and then they can restore peace back to the village. The plan worked. Unfortunately for the monkey, fortunately for the villagers. But the interesting thing was that the monkey could have become free if only it would release its fist. But because he was holding on to the treats, it was trapped. And I think that especially highlights my first point about why we cause ourselves unnecessary suffering. And that is by refusing to let go. Now, as we all know, people experience these stages. They come in chapters. Nothing really lasts forever. But I think, unfortunately, we struggle to let go of things. We hold on to a glorious past. We hold on to what was amazing in our lives. And sometimes, even when things have run their course, we don't want to let go. And by doing that, we heap unnecessary suffering on ourselves. And it's hard sometimes because I think we almost kind of build a shrine to what we know. And it's hard to start again and start to, go on to something new, even if that old thing is no longer serving you. But I think it's important to learn when it's time to move on to the next chapter and allow life to bring us wonderful things and no longer just hold on to the past because we just think it's glorious. Allow the future to unravel. But I know it's difficult, but I think it's one of the ways we can especially stop causing ourselves unnecessary suffering. The second point is to lose our short-term thinking and instead adopt a long-term mindset. Now, you probably all have heard or read about the marshmallow test that was run in Stanford many years ago, where a couple of 4 to 5 year olds were gathered in a room. I gave them all a mushroom. Was put mushroom. Why would you want to give a 4-year-old a mushroom? They would not want that. I meant a marshmallow. So they gave the 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds mushroom. Marshmallow. Okay, right. Anyway, so they gave them the option of having a marshmallow and said, if you have your marshmallow now, you can have the marshmallow now, or you can wait for 15 minutes. And if you wait for 15 minutes, we'll give you an additional marshmallow. So obviously as a 4-year-old, you're thinking, I just want to have my marshmallow. And interestingly enough, they followed the children throughout their lives until they reached adulthood. And they discovered that the children that were able to delay their gratification and not have that instant marshmallow were much more likely to be successful later on in life. Less likely to abuse drugs, more likely to have a stable life, good friendships, and a stable mental health. And I think that really highlights the importance of delaying our gratification. Bishop T.D. Jakes, who I listen to a lot, said, there's an old person inside of you relying on the decisions you're making today. And I think that highlights the importance of us thinking longer term in terms of the choices we make, how we spend our money, how we live our lives, adopting a creating mindset rather than consuming. Because I think if you only did what was instantly pleasurable in every moment, I think you will suffer for it at some point. And I think that's how we cause ourselves unnecessary suffering, because we're not able to make decisions that don't necessarily feel good, but they actually sort of invest in our future and what we can gain later on the line. My third point is learning to utilize lessons from your difficult mistakes. I think that's especially a powerful way in which we can stop causing ourselves unnecessary suffering. Every experience comes with a lesson, and it's much more indelible when it's a painful lesson. But more often than not, we tend to repeat the same mistakes. And it's interesting because as human beings, we're not necessarily like monkeys. We're much more complex in the sense that we can actually reflect on our experiences. I mean, that monkey would probably try to put its hand in another coconut the next day. But as human beings, we can reflect. As human beings, we have the opportunity to change, to think about what we're doing and change if it's not working for us. So why is it that we keep repeating the same mistakes? It reminds me of an example of the short story about the frog, where if you put a frog in water, you can slowly boil it to death. But obviously it's different from throwing the frog into hot water. It might immediately jump out. And I think that's the power of things that can creep up on us if we're not careful. If you're not careful, you will stay in hot water that will kill you, rather than jumping out when you should. And that's how slowly the bad decisions that you make, or you're refusing to change or make better decisions, can be quite disastrous. But yeah, that's all I wanted to share. And I think suffering is, like I said, there's a point where we go beyond the pain of life and we enter like the distinction of unnecessary suffering. I think it's important for us to learn to reflect, to learn how we can do better, because that's the only way in which we can improve our lives and the quality of our lives over the course of time. Thanks for joining me on this one, guys. And always remember that life rewards those who live intentionally.